flawless skin and tall, skinny frame? Are we born with a specific idea of beauty, or did we learn to worship a certain image? The standard of beauty has changed over the years. In the Renaissance, or in different societies since the Renaissance, full curvy women are considered attractive as it showed health, wealth, and power. Today, at least in the fashion world, many would consider women in those paintings overweight, weak-willed, and unattractive. At the very beginning of last year, I joined a modeling agency, and this was the same time I started my new high school. A big part of the reason why I started this job was not just because I was inspired by it, but because I was overly concerned with my self-image, and I was naturally very unconfident and quiet. A huge part of me wanted to overcome this fear, and I wanted people in my new school to think that I was different, but in a way that people looked up to me. I was so obsessed with appearing to look like I was having this amazing, happy lifestyle that everyone would be jealous of. And you know what? It worked. People congratulated me, admired my job, relatives were happy for me when they heard about a new shoot coming up, and some people even came to tell me that they were jealous of me for who I am. It made me feel so proud, so special in a way that I'd never felt before. But all this came with a price. I noticed this straight away. My agency had measured every inch of my body and told me to my face that I was fat and that I needed to lose weight. My boss would give me very unhealthy and unrealistic measurements they expected me to work towards and fit into. I noticed that these were very unhealthy measurements, but at the time I thought that he was leading me to a successful career, and that one day I could look like one of those models I looked up to and respected. So I would try extremely hard to meet these numbers. Soon enough, I went absolutely crazy, and sometimes I'd try to go days without food. Every time I ate something, I'd feel this overwhelmingly disgusting sense of guilt. And I'd eventually beat myself up thinking, how disgraceful of me that I couldn't hold back and resist my cravings. All I could think about was food and how much I was supposed to hate it. I'd stand on the scale religiously every morning and every night, leading myself through a slaughter of beauty expectations. And I'd look into the mirror, and all I'd see is these numbers, my BMI, my weight, my measurements. And sometimes I'd start crying, unable to accept how I looked. I started hating myself. What made it worse was the fact that I knew models my age that were so much skinnier than me and so much more successful than me that I couldn't help but compare myself with these girls. I felt worthless, and I started to feel like, after I became a model, no one cared about my personality or ambitions anymore, and that all that mattered about me was if I had the ideal body or not. All this chaos had started with me trying to seem amazing, trying to make myself look like someone who I wasn't, someone who doesn't really exist in the world. And I did this by basing my perspective of beauty on the images presented to us on the cover of magazines, posters, billboards, commercials, everywhere we look. Now, I may look like I'm a very proud, narcissistic person bragging in disguise, but this is because we've been taught that being close to the image of society's perception of beauty is something to be proud of, something to be applauded, something to be celebrated, and this shouldn't be the case. Just take a step back and think about it for a second. What will being beautiful do for you? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It doesn't make you a better person, and it certainly won't make you happy as media so eagerly and so successfully portrays it. It only distorts our vision of the world as it has once done to me. Okay. Famous actress Jennifer Lawrence once said, "In Hollywood, I'm obese. I'm considered a fat actress." A reporter for ABC notes, "The notion that Hollywood could possibly consider Lawrence fat would be the first indication that society's perception of body image has spun out of control." Notice how both of these quotes say fat with a negative connotation. I looked up body image on an SNS site and came across this statement. I just noticed that when somebody, for example, calls themselves fat, their friend would cheer them up by saying, "No, you're not. You're beautiful." And that just shows that you can't be both fat and beautiful. You have to be skinny to be beautiful, which isn't true. What they should say is, "Yes, and you're still beautiful." What do you think about this statement? Before, I probably would have said, "Oh, I agree completely. It sounds reasonable." But now, not anymore. At least Let me add something to that. Why draw any attention to our appearances in the first place? Why should we care about how we look? We have a very bad habit of judging people right off the bat, like criticizing people's appearances before we even care to find out what they're really like inside. You see on movies and TV shows where men watch girls walk past them and say, "Damn, she's hot." Or girls often had a boy at the lockers and whispering to each other, "Oh my God, he is so cute." Media has instilled this way of thinking in our lives since a very young age, saying that it's our looks that define our value, our worth, and are a huge part of who we are. Asking people what their weight is, or even calling someone fat, has become a taboo, as if describing someone by this body figure is a put down. But in this case, why is calling someone skinny not a put down, but instead a mood-lifting compliment? When your mom bumps into a friend, the first thing you'll hear them say is, "You look great, you lost weight, what's your secret?" While the other responds, "Thanks, but I still have a ways to go until I reach my goal." And many of us don't think twice when a friend asks, "Do I look fat in this?" Target's retouching failure on their swimsuit model became news very early this year. We can see very visible bits and chunks taken off her body. These mistakes are pretty laughable, but we have to question, what were they going for? Was Target trying to make their thin teenage model look even thinner? What were they trying to achieve by retouching their model? How about social media? How many of you have heard the term thigh gap before? Many girls in Western countries use the gap between their thighs as a status. The more air you have in between your thighs, the more beautiful and superior you're considered. Not only is this thigh gap obsession physically and emotionally unhealthy, but most of the time unattainable. Media glorifies unhealthy images such as self-harm and the desire to be skinny to encourage girls to feel miserable and bad about themselves. Confidence-crushing messages, such as these ones on the board, are disguised as inspiration for staying thin. Media is telling us through these SMS sites that if you're not feeling miserable and bad about yourself, there must be something wrong with you. These ideas have come to an extreme where it's even become an addiction, making us think that once we fit into this image, we'll become happy. Anorexia patients have become younger and younger as years pass. Plastic surgery is also another thing people resort to, and an example is the Little Baby Face Foundation, which gives free plastic surgery to kids who have been victims of bullying. Philosopher Guy Debord once wrote, "All that once was directly lived has become mere representation." He argues that the history of social life can be understood as the decline of being into having, and having into merely appearing. In a consumer society, social life is not about living, but about having. The media uses the image to convey what people need and must have. Consequently, social life moves further, leaving a state of having and proceeding into a state of merely appearing. Our image is so important in our society. We live in an era where capturing moments with our phones is more important than actually living the moment. We tend to try to showcase only the positive aspects of our lives and paint a rather distorted vision of who we are. Our appearances do not identify who we are. Numbers do not measure our value or self-worth. We aren't confined to another idealism of beauty. Beauty should not be found in the first images that pop up in our Google search. This is literally what came up. It is instead found in our ideas, passions, dreams, achievements, successes. I believe people who can find beauty in places other than what media flaunts in our faces are truly beautiful. Thank you.